Hello, everybody. Thanks for dialing in. We're going to be going through Onshape and really how it helps in the mobile strategies and what we're doing today in the new environment, really, that we're faced with. So I'd like to start off with a basic slide kind of talking about your typical designer or engineer. We have a couple of them up here. And like everybody, we want to do things, be able to do things quickly, be able to innovate. We want to be efficient at what we do. So everything that I'm going to put up below this line are things that kind of keep us from attaining those three goals. But first of all, there's CAD, right? So everybody's going to be developing a product using CAD software. So we load that on our desktops, our laptops, or whatever. Once we have that all set up and we set up our network and our VPNs and FTP sites and security software and all of that, we're ready to go. And we start generating information. And those are in the terms of files. To generate lots of information, parts, drawings, assemblies, things like that. And then we want to start exchanging those, not only internal to the company, but also external. And so we can do that in a variety of different ways. We can go and send some copies over to people using email, using Dropbox. We also want to internally communicate, so we might use a file server, and we start putting our information on the file server. But then that also comes with kind of the concern of, am I overwriting anybody's work? Do I have the latest file when I'm pulling things from this file server? So we can get a little more sophisticated and start to do things using a PDM server. So that's going to give us the information that we need, the latest information, to make sure that we're not overwriting other people's work. But again, all we're doing is just kind of moving copies around. If you check something out of a PDM system, you're checking out a copy. And basically, the idea here is that we have lots and lots of copies of lots and lots of files. And people can even do a partial cloud solution. But that's just basically another file server in the cloud, and it's just pushing more copies around. So there's a different way of doing this. This is traditionally how CAD has been. But Onshape is different. Onshape is a unified cloud solution. So everything that you need is in the Onshape environment. So things like CAD, data management, workflows, communications, task management, all of those type of things. I'm going to highlight a couple things here. And I'm going to talk a little bit about data management. So once we're generating all this information, we need to start managing, or at least being able to access that data and get the right data as quickly as possible. Also, kind of the way that Onshape works is that everything that you do is preserved. Everything is saved so that you can go back to any moment in time and get that information. We also have named versions. So at a particular point in time, we'll say that this is important, basically kind of taking a snapshot of the product at this point. And then from there, we could maybe use it in other assemblies. We could use it in branching. I might want to take this idea and try a different approach and see if that works. And we can always merge these branches together if we do like the things that have been developed, and merge that into one back into our main product. Another thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is administration. So because everybody's dispersed nowadays, it seems to, it's not like the old days where everyone's under one roof. Certainly not under one roof all the time. We travel all over. We might be in different buildings, different cities, different states, different countries. Being able to administer that is really important. So there's a web-based tool to administer all the data, all the users, everything. And again, it's all cloud-based. So the way that we access it is through a web browser. We could use it with a tablet, a laptop, or whatever, anything that has a browser. One of the things that we can do is easily incorporate users or unincorporate users into our system. There's a variety of different levels of administration that we can use to control things. Something I wanted to highlight with you, this is a slide that I just made, kind of talking about how we bring somebody into a company. So there's people coming and leaving all the time. And the typical process we go through is we get a purchase order, we start putting together the hardware that we need, start adding the software, buying the different licenses that we would need to put on that hardware. We start integrating it into our network, making sure that everything works, putting on security, software, things like that. And then we would ship that hardware to the employee. And then we'd also have to, take some time to get that employee ramped up with everything that we've sent him and to start working. So there's a lot of things here. The way that it works in the Onshape world is that we just enter in that new hire's email address. He gets an email with a link, he clicks on it, he signs into Onshape, and he's ready to participate right away. So he doesn't have his laptop yet. We're still, most likely you're still going to have to go through this process for the other applications that you use in your company. But as far as Onshape is concerned, that very second, he can start contributing. He can start taking part in design reviews, start looking at the different products that we have, just using his cell phone. So this is a very different type of approach working in the cloud than we're used to using. And it's a lot more efficient. So let's go back and take a look at the software itself. This is Onshape when I log in. This would be like my home page. These are models that I've frequently or recently worked with. These are different folders that I have access to or I've been given access to or created myself. One of the things that I want to talk about is if we start having multiple users, we can kind of consider that a company. So these are the users in my company, right, that use Onshape. We can see them here. And we can organize these people in different groups, in teams. We can have an engineering group, a manager's group, manufacturing, and again, we can just create our own groups any way that we want and who do we want to be in those groups. Another thing, when we have all these people generating all this data, we also need to control this data, not only through data management techniques, but also through revision control. So there's built-in revision control in Onshape. Basically, everything that we're creating is kind of in progress, and then we can send that to somebody or a group of people or a team to review this, and then they can make a decision whether this should be approved, released, or rejected, maybe for further work or something like that. So Onshape is really good with not only managing your data, but then also managing the flow of that data. If I browse down here a little bit farther, another thing that it does is it has an automatic part numbering system built into it. So anything that I can create, I might call it bolt, and I might have a bunch of bolts out there. But the thing is that I would give it a part number. This is a unique number. I could specify a prefix if I wanted, how many characters are in the default part numbering system, and then I can also see the results of that. So parts, assemblies, drawings, and even files. And all of these can then be used in the release process that we saw above here. So let's go and take a look at Onshape. I'm going to start working with a part here that I have set up. We're kind of catching this design in the middle of it already pretty much pretty far along its development path. So we're not going to really be talking a lot about CAD here, but really the things that set Onshape apart in a mobile world. So first of all, just for background's sake, really the way I started this out is the customer sent me an image. I went and sketched on top of that image and started to create this geometry that you see here. I am in what is called a part studio. So when I create something, I create a part studio. And in that studio, I can have assemblies, I can have drawings, I can have other information. We can take a look at the part studio for this. Really, it's a food processor here. And we can see here that I have an assembly, I have a drawing. I actually put in a file or a folder here. And in the folder, I have a variety of different images to kind of help me in the development of this particular product. I also have requirements from the customer of what they want to see. So anything that has to do with the development of this product, I keep in this part studio. So as I mentioned before, there are a couple things here I can look at. Right now in the part studio, this is a multi-body or a multi-part design system. So really I can have a single part and have it built several bodies in here. So I can select those and you can see that there are separate bodies all here. I can make drawings of each one of these bodies. I can also use them in different assemblies. But technically what we're looking at here is not an assembly. To create assembly, I just basically took all of those and said, put it in an assembly. Over here along the right side, now we see listings of parts as opposed to listings of features that created those parts. Also with an assembly, we also have a bill of material. So we can see our bill of material here, the different components. Maybe I'll change this column and we'll move it over. So now we have our item numbers, our names, our quantities, we can have part numbers, and we can go and add a variety of other columns to this. The thing is that this bill of material that I develop here is the exact same one that I would use in a drawing. I also have a drawing started for this, so I'm going to select the drawing here. One of the things with drawings, it comes with default ANSI ISO standard title blocks. I've created my own with my company information. It's pulling out information here. We can see I have a couple of views set up here. Here's our bill of material. And so we've got kind of a start on this product. So up until now, this is all just your typical CAD system. For me, everything has happened in the cloud, but it looks and behaves like everybody else's CAD system. So let's start doing some things that really set this apart. So I'm working with this design right now, and it's this top part that I'm concerned with. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say, let's add a comment. And the comment is, I don't know, help develop this, please. And I'm going to send it to someone in my company. So I'll start to type in their name. I do @ we call it a couple of Nicks. I'm going to give it to this Nick. I'm going to say, help me develop, if I could spell this. And I'm going to assign this to him. So this is part of the whole workflow process. I'm going to actually give this to Nick as something to do, other than just saying, hey, look, can you help me with this? I'm kind of saying, here, this is your task to help me with this part. And I'm going to assign it to Nick. So now that's assigned. It says, Nick now has access to this part. Do you want to share it with him? Yes, I do. Because he can't help me unless he has access to it. Up until now, no one else has had access to this. And we can see that he's brought into the conversation. He gets an email. And I'm going to move this over a little bit so we can see what Nick gets. So once Nick gets his email saying Bill has invited you to participate in the development of this product, he can sign in. So he signs in Onshape. Here's what I sent him, his assignment under his action items. He can select on this. We can see the chopper design that we have, and he can select on that. So he's not calling up a copy of this. He's actually participating and sharing in the exact same product that I have on my screen. So now he has his, kind of text messages over here that we can communicate with back and forth. He also notices that there is a comment line here on the top part, so he knows this is, the part that I need for him to kind of help me with. One of the things that we can do as well is that kind of to help describe a little bit more what I want, I can have Nick kind of in follow mode. And what I need him to do is take a look at, so I'm going to say, let's turn off a couple of these parts here. And you'll notice that whatever happens on my screen is happening on his because it's the same part. We're sharing in the same process. And I can look at it here, and I can come in, and as I zoom in, you notice on his screen, there's a little finger pointing. I'm saying, I need you to kind of hollow this out and better develop this part. Can you do that? And he could text me back and say, sure, not a problem. So now we have somebody participating in the design process, and it really doesn't matter where he is. I can just bring him along and send him a message. He can start working with it as long as he has a web browser. At this point, though, I don't want him really messing around with my design because I still have some more work to do with the assembly and with the drawing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a version. So right now, as I mentioned in the beginning, everything that I've done is saved. All the history of everything we've done is here for this particular part. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a version at this part. So at this point in history, I'm going to say, and I'm just going to call this like before Nick. So everything before this point, the stuff that I did, everything after is Nick. So I'm creating a version here. We can see that that's added to our history tree. And this is where I'm going to come in and say at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to branch off. I'm going to give Nick a branch to work on. And so he can work on it. I can review it. If it looks good, I'll include it. If not, I won't. So we could just call this like ECN, 123 and put in a description and things like that. But now I've created a branch. You notice that it branches off from the main history that I've been working with. And this is what I want Nick to use. So I could say, Nick, use ECN 123. And so he sees all of that, right? Because we're sharing in the same process here. He can just select on this, and now he's working on that branch, where back over here, I could be working on the main design. Now the thing is that you'll notice Nick's menus down here. He just has kind of viewer menus. So he can kind of come in here and maybe do cross sections. You can kind of see that this is just a big block of material. So he understands that, this is something that he needs to work on. But he only has viewing capabilities. And so he can send me or call me or whatever and say, hey, I need to have some more capabilities here. So I can see that I'm sharing it with Nick. I can go in and just say, let's edit this. And let's give him edit rights. And I'll update those. So now Nick will have ability to do the same things that I've been doing, right? He'll be able to make changes to this particular part. So in this case, Nick's starting to work on his design. I'm going to go in and, while he's working on this, and you notice that he's totally independent from me. I'm just going to go back to the assembly for a second. And for the assembly that we had here, remember we had multiple parts. This is going to be a food process, so I need something to chop the food once it's inside of here. So one of the things that I'll do, and we'll kind of include our little cup here, is I'm going to say, let's add some other components to this. I'm going to add some other assemblies, and I'll say, let's just say something that might have been recently done here. So I'm just going to browse through our products here, and we see something that is a product that we can use, and I'm going to say, let's use this. And we'll add this in. I'm going to move it off to the side here so that we can see it. But what I want to really do is have this go in and fit inside of this hole. So I can use a variety of different tools that we have here for making mechanisms, right? I have pin joints, I have planar. I'm going to use a cylindrical. But basically, I'll just say, let's take this and put it and line it up to here. Now, I want some limits on this, so it just doesn't infinitely go and cut through the bottom. So here I could say where it is at the top. We could say that's good. Maybe how far down can it go? Maybe 1.5 inches. And I don't really need it to rotate around any of the axes or anything like that. So now we have a mechanism. I can select on this, and our chopper can come down and chop the food, right? So very, very simple. If we go to the drawing that I created earlier, now the drawing has changed, right? This is a drawing of our assembly. Now if we take a look at it, some new parts have been added. So one of the things that Onshape lets you know if your drawing has updates to it is this little yellow button here. And I can select on this, and what it will do is it'll bring in, first thing you'll notice is it added a couple of components to the bill of material here, which represent the plunger and the blade that I brought in. Now I can go in and start to do some more things with our drawing here. I'm just going to come in and say, let's just make maybe a section cut over here so we can kind of see that. And also, let's maybe we'll put in a dimension or something. So we'll start to do the development of this particular part. Let's say dimension 2 here. And then there's a variety of different, obviously fully functional capabilities. We could say plus or minus 50 thousandths. So here's our dimensioning. And again, I can put notes and other things, but you notice that we still have this thick upper part that we've been working with. So at this point, Nick can get back to me and say, I'm coming along good with this design. And so far, really, he hasn't been doing anything. So let's take a look and see what Nick would do. One of the things that he can do is he could come in here and say, I want to isolate this top part. So I can still see the other parts with it, but now I can do the work that I need to do. The first thing is, it's a big block part. So let's kind of hollow this out. So he shells that out, starting to look a little bit better. This part right here is kind of hanging down a little bit farther than what he might want it to do. So in this case, let's turn off a couple of these parts here. Go back to our, go back to our next version here. And we'll turn these guys off. So we can see this. We can also make non-parametric edits. So basically I can just pick on a face and move it. And that's what I'm going to do. Here it's moving it down. I really wanted to move it up, make it a little bit shorter than the rest of the part. Now I'm finished, right? So now I can go back to Bill and say, hey, this has been developed. I'm liking this. And can you take a look at it? So, and he'll turn on, let's turn on the other parts here as well. So back here at my design, and again, remember, I'm working on the main design. Looking at this is still my thick part, right? And so I can go and select and see the type of work that Nick's been doing. And again, let's, I should have left those guys turned off. We can take a look, say, yep, that looks pretty good. So I can incorporate his design into mine. All I have to do is right mouse button on it and say merge these together. So now Nick's work that he's done has become part of this design. I can turn it around, we can see it there. If I were to go to, let's make this all here, go to our assembly, that's obviously going to update. We're really going to see the real updates a little more obviously is in the drawing here. So we can go and take a look at the drawing. Again, the little yellow button is highlighted saying let's update the views that we have here. Again, the number of parts and things haven't changed at all, just that one top part that Nick has been working on. But again, taking a look at that, we can see that everything worked out the way that we want. So we've really got a part here, a nice design that we can talk to the customer about and start working with that. Now, one of the things that happens, and we'll kind of do a little scenario of that, is we've got an application engineer on site with the customer. And what we want to do is have him give us some new information, right? So he's calling us. I'm going to share my phone with you here. We're going to go back to our Part Studio here. And let's take a look at what he's doing. And he gives us a call on his phone. And we could be FaceTiming, Zoom, whatever, pick your app. But he's talking to us, he says, hey, I'm with the customer right now, and they have an idea on another product that they used. And it looked like this. And basically they had a little cutout so people can hold the product a little bit tighter so it doesn't slide around. And they'd like to do that with our design. And it's like, well, okay, I guess we could do that. Kind of a last minute deal, but can you give me more information on it? And he says, well, let me try something here. Let me show you exactly what we're doing. I got the customer sitting looking over my shoulder while we're doing this conference call. Let me call this up. So again, he's on his phone, but he can call up this exact same part that we're working on, and he can move it around, can see this. One of the things that he wants to do is do that cutout. So he can kind of come back through here, through the history, and say, at this particular point, I want to go to this point, and then I'm going to create that little cutout. So we're going to take that, and he's got fully functioning Onshape here. So here are all the commands, and we'll say, let's just kind of extrude that out. Instead of adding material, we want it to remove material. We'll kind of do maybe symmetric and maybe make it 2 inches. So now we can see that it's removing material. We just say, okay, here's the design. Customer's looking at it saying, yeah, that's starting to look a lot better. We did go in here and we kind of went back in time to put this in. So what I can do is just say, let's turn everything back on. Here's the design with the cutout. That's looking great. We could go over and say, let's look at, while we're on the phone with the customer, let's take a look at the assembly. This is what your assembly would look like, Mr. Customer. And you can see that we have, ability to move these parts around. Let's grab this guy. My finger's kind of sticky here. We can also go back over to the drawing. And while the customer is looking over our shoulder, we can say, this is the product that we've been developing for you. We can go in and say, let's maybe update that. Hit the update button. And it's updating here on the phone real time. And we can see that it's automatically included that cutout that we've included here. So the thing is right now, Nick's been working on this. I've been working on this. We've got our application engineer with the customer working on this as all. And now he can just give us his sign off. Everything looks great. We've got the drawing done, pretty much done. And we've got the assembly and the parts all finished. So we can start moving forward. So this is an example of how Onshape can benefit you with its mobile strategies in today's workforce. We have multiple people all coming together. This would have been done in half the time if I didn't have to play everybody's role in this particular presentation. But you get an idea of the capabilities of the system and how efficient you can be at developing products in a collaborative environment, which really didn't exist before Onshape. So that kind of brings us to the end of our presentation for today. Thanks for being here, and we'll hope to talk to you again soon.